Oh yeah, it's time to get controversial. Thank you to our $5 patrons, Red Wolf 4765, Midnight Gem Lord Sean, and Demix LNT. Another thank you to our $3 members, Recliner Plays and Red Wolf 4765. Another thank you to our $10 patrons, Robbie Uchiha and Idemokami. And another very big thank you to our $25 member, Alex Ice Rose. Before we have in this ranking of the heavy hitters of Jujutsu High, please remember to leave your own thoughts on what the heavy hitters list is in the comment section down below. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also hit that little notification to miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also I do have a Patreon down below, so for as low as $1 a month to get things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. Also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Now let's hop into the ranking and discussion. What's up, guys? And here we are to rank the Jujutsu High heavy hitters from weakest to strongest. And when I say Jujutsu High heavy hitters, I very specifically mean Hikari Kinji, Maki Zenin, and Yuta Okotsu. I would include Itadori Yuji in here, but specifically in the lineup where Kenjaku talks about the people who would come fight Sukuna if Gojo happens to lose to him. Yuji's not even mentioned, which is very unfortunate. I feel so bad for my boy. His own mama won't acknowledge him. But I want to specifically rank those three in particular because they are kind of known as the heavy hitters. Like, Yuji, for all intents and purposes, is still a first year, I'm pretty sure. Meanwhile, Hikari's a third year, Maki and Yuta second years. So I think a nice, even, easy top three would be good to go with, at least in my opinion. And we're going to do like this is going to ironically enough be like two lists in of itself. First, we're going to rank their general states, the states you'll find them in most often, and then we'll rank their like optimal states. Because unfortunately, two of the three heavy hitters just aren't on demon timing at all times. One is only on demon timing for 5 minutes. The other one's only on demon timing after very specifically getting extremely specific circumstances met that will not be guaranteed in every single battle they get into. So we're going to have to rank them in base and then outside of base. But let's not waste any more time and let's hop right into it. First things first, we're going to tackle the easier ranking, in my opinion, which will be all of them in base. So let's not waste any more time and let's hop into number 3. So when it comes strictly to base, unfortunately, Hikari is like just the worst. Like, and not even like the worst in a bad way. Like, base Hikari's still a monster. Don't get me wrong. It's not like base Hikari's fodder or anything. You throw base Hikari in the early series and he jacks up the power scaling. Like, literally ban him from using his curse technique, or at least ban him from using domain, and he still packs up a majority of the early series just by his base scaling after Shibuya being able to smack up fully healed Demon God Yuji. That is still very, very impressive. Like, don't get me wrong. But in comparison to the two people he's dealing with, it's not all that. Like, base Hikari, his best feats in terms of like genuine scaling are once again scaling above fully healed Demon God Yuji, which the two people above him also very easily do, and then fighting Bernard. And like, Bernard goes nowhere, at least in terms of scaling. Like, I cannot think of a direction to take Bernard, like, other than he scales somewhere nebulously below a base non-serious Hikari. Like, okay, where does that take me? Where does that put Bernard at all? So base Hikari just unfortunately doesn't have the feats. And like, even if you were to like try and slop off base Hikari in the fight against Kashimo when he's in domain, he survives Kashimo when he's in domain. He doesn't actually ever, I don't think he does any damage to Kashimo while he's in base fighting in his domain. So like, that is pretty rough for him. That is like genuinely pretty darn rough for him. It's to the point where I think the two people above him would genuinely just, like, not necessarily no-diff him. No-diff him is rude. Well, actually, one of them I do believe would absolutely no-diff base Hikari. Like, I think it's just beyond a shadow of a doubt they would annihilate that man's cheeks. However, in terms of, I don't know, the other one, I think they have an easy way to beat Hikari. It's just that they probably wouldn't want to do it. Because Hikari, I don't know, base Hikari just doesn't have the stats. He's not that impressive, which has me really wondering why he's not, like, I don't know, setting up domain, like, just in case he needs to tag in, right? Like, even if he doesn't have to tag in against Sukuna, right? Like, you would think that he knows he's gonna have to fight Kenjaku. He is a player in the culling games. Kenjaku added that rule. They all know that 1 second or another, Kenjaku's going to appear and run their pockets. So like the fact that base Hakari is kind of just chilling right now, instead of at least trying to maintain like a passive jackpot, bro, just get someone in a domain and like be ready, be prepared, because you're on call, bro. you may have the day off for right now, but like your manager's ready to ring you at any time. You should be at least sitting in jackpot. However, that's the weakest in base. But who's the weakest, like verbatim overall? Put them all in their peak states. And the thing is, right? It depends on what you think by weakest. Because if you want to go with the idea that strength is not everything, and you should include hacks diversity, then ironically enough, you could make a pretty solid argument for Jackpot Hakari still being the weakest. like it's crazy to say, but Jackpot Hakari, while having very, 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 very impressive feats against Kashimo, surviving him, tanking him, eating him, and have a very, I'd say, an easier state to continue his peak level of power in comparison to the people above him, I'd still say on simultaneously the hacks front, and like due to hacks, an argument front, if you were to put the Jackpot Hakari in the same room with the other two, I think the other two still have a solid chance of either stalling him out to the point where they could, beat him in a fight, and or straight up, I don't know, just beating him, even in Jackpot, due to certain conditions that the other two can meet. Because, like, you gotta realize Jackpot Hakari is, once again, his best feats, his best scaling are directly scaling to Kashimo. And while Kashimo is super duper impressive, Kashimo doesn't have the highest curse energy output in all of history. Like, Yuta was able to fight off, for the most part. Like, I get it, Yuta's hands were getting charred and stuff like that, but Yuta could heal it off, and Rika was kind of running the ones with Ryu. Like, able to exchange genuine blows with him. And I think exchanging genuine blows with Ryu and being able to eat Granite Blast, which is something that we've seen Rika, Full Power Rika, do, I think Full Power Rika and Yuta would kind of, not manhandle Jackpot Hakari. I don't think they would, like, come out of nowhere and start instantaneously bullying that man. Like, I just don't think it's the case. But I do believe that if you were to put Jackpot Hakari fresh off the 4 minutes and 11 seconds, like, fresh off of getting Jackpot against Bernard and one-tapping him, and then take Yuta fresh after awakening Rika and getting his Curse Energy Reserve still back up, my money's gonna be on Yuta, especially post-Sendai when he has Sky Manipulation, he has Drew Shikigami technique, he has Curse Speech. Like, he could literally just mess around with Hakari. And notably, we still don't know what his domain does. Like, I don't necessarily like using hypotheticals all too often, but even with Hakari's domain supposedly being good in Tug of Wars, I feel like Yuta's domain would at least be able to put up enough of a fight against it that Hakari wouldn't be able to easily get into Jackpot. And I don't think I need to convince you that Full Power Yuta with what? Hakari's lasts for 4 minutes and 11 seconds. Yuta lasts for 5 minutes. I don't think I need to convince you that Full Power Yuta and Rika fully manifested inside Hakari's domain is going to beat base Hakari. Because that's all who's in there. Even with renewals, even with stuff like that, all they really need to do is restrain Hakari. And then Hakari loses. Realistically, all Yuta needs to do is do Hakari exactly like he did Yuji. And just restrain him with Rika and boop! And then Hakari's done. At least in my opinion. Jackpot Hakari is super duper impressive. I do believe that you can definitely make a pretty solid argument that in terms of physical stats, Jackpot Hakari should be above Full Power Yuta, and I specifically just mean Yuta, mainly because of how we know Cursed Energy Reinforcement works, and we know Hakari has literally infinite Cursed Energy, Yuta has quote-unquote boundless Cursed Energy, and thus how the reinforcement scales out. I do believe that, but I don't believe Hakari has anything to suggest that he's above Full Power Rika, in terms of just raw output. I don't think so. If he's, after having an extended battle, like what, and nearly 10 or like I think maybe even 12-minute battle with Kashimo, and Kashimo was able to get up with like nothing more than a couple scratches, I don't really see Hakari being able to just beat just Full Power Rika alone. Like, if him and Full Power Rika were to have a straight boxing match, I don't think Hakari can win that. And with that being the case, I don't really see Hakari being able to beat Full Power Yuta, because he wouldn't just be fighting Full Power Rika, he'd also be getting like hacked out by whatever Yuta can do. And even though just going with confirmed stuff, the only thing that would really be effective against Hakari is Sky Manipulation and maybe Drew Shikigami technique, I think that would be enough. I think legitimately with Sky Manipulation for 5 minutes. I don't think Hikari's going to be able to do any significant damage to Yuta, because Yuta would just redirect all of his attacks and Thin Icebreaker him, and Rika will be there beating the dookie out of Hikari until the 4 minutes 11 seconds is up, and then bada bing bada boom, Hikari gets neutralized by either getting Wombo comboed by Yuta and Rika, and or literally just being restrained. If he can't make the domain signs because full power Rika's holding his arms together or holding his arms apart, then he literally can't continue the domain. So that's what I think. I think Hikari, unfortunately, both in base and at like hype next level jackpot, is weaker than Yuta in terms of who would win in a one-on-one encounter. And I do think Maki would beat Jackpot Hikari, mainly because Jackpot Hikari doesn't have any of the speed feats to really justify being able to even tag Maki. And also, can he even enter Jackpot against Maki? Like, is the prerequisite for Hikari's domain the ability to play with somebody else? I assume it is. I legit assume it is, because I think he would just consistently be in Jackpot if it wasn't. And if he tries to use domain on Maki, unless she consents to it, it would just fail, because there's no other person to play against. Because he'd be trying to play with a building. He'd be trying to play with a pet rock. Like, it's not going to work. So I don't even think Hikari can reach his win con against Maki. And even if he gets his win con against somebody else, I think Maki could either A, stall him out, B, soul splitter him to death. Like, soul split katana him up out of here, or C, just stall. Like, once again, Hikari doesn't have the speed. I don't think Hikari has the genuine speed to keep up with Maki, who is, once again, a demonic fighter equal to Toji Zenin, and able to keep up somewhat with 15-finger Maguna. So, like, sorry, Hikari just ain't got nothing like that. But let's move on to number 2. So, next up on the chopping block is going to be a little known fella. You know, I heard he got his own obscure indie movie and stuff like that, and I heard he may have been the main character of a prequel series to JJK. Yeah, it's Yuta Okotsu. Now, after just glazing Yuta so much, it may be crazy for you guys to hear me put him at number 2. And here's the thing, right? Yuta is unbelievably broken if he can hit you. And that's the big if. If he can hit you, he can do buku bonkers things. Sky manipulation, crazy. Drew Shikigami technique. We don't ever see Yuta make Shikigami as big as Drew, but if you had to ask me who has more cursed energy, who could likely whip something like that out, I'm gonna lean towards Yuta getting Shikigami that big, and that could go absolutely buku bonkers. Heck, even just cursed speech, a 9 out of 10 times is crazy. And literally ask me, like, when did chapter 216 come out? Not even 216. I think it's like 215. It's whatever the fight with Maki and Sukuna happened. Like, ask me before that chapter came out, and I would have given it to Yuta. I like straight up, word for word, bar for bar, would have given it to Yuta beyond a shadow of a doubt. However, due to certain recent events, I'm going to have to start pushing the Maki and Toji agenda. I'm sorry, it's just going to have to happen. Mainly because Yuta, his main 2 things, right, are his diversity and his bulk. He doesn't have that crazy AP, and he doesn't realistically have that crazy of speed. And unfortunately, the diversity, while very, very good, is still super duper limited. And especially if you push the agenda, which, you know, I may or may not still. I don't know. I still need to think on it. I haven't really been convinced against the agenda, but, like, once again, I'm now starting to push the Maki and Toji agenda, and that's an agenda that runs counter to the thing I'm about to say. If you think cursed speech does work on the Zenin duo, the Heavenly Restriction duo, then maybe full power Yuta can eke out a win con. Maybe, because then he would be able to speak it. But even then, if you just go with the idea that sound travels at the speed of sound, and then Maki is able to casually precog react to Mach 3, like, then she would just dodge it, which sounds crazy to say, that she would just dodge cursed speech, but she very easily could. Like, there's no reason for her not to. And then you have the other subsect of people that argue that they're just immune to it. I don't really get it, but if you go with the idea that they're immune, then Yuta seriously has no win con, because he's not going to tag her. Like, he's not going to be able to tag her, because no full power and base. Well, this is going to sound crazy, but listen to the scaling chain real quick. Full power Yuta directly relative to Ryu. Like, we just see this. They consistently exchange blows, if not Ryu having a slight speed advantage, considering he's the one pressuring Yuta. But that could just be an AP pressuring thing. The two are at bare minimum relative in speed. Then we have 15-finger Maguna. He perception blitzes Ryu. There's no other way to put it. He just straight up perception blitzes Ryu. Ryu literally cannot perceive him as he gets trisected. And then you have this same 15-finger Maguna pull up on Maki, and explicitly, Gege went out of his way to have Sukuna mention that at least in terms of physicals, he is just fine. The only thing that's messing with him is his cursed energy output. The only thing that's weaker on him are his special, mystical, magical curse techniques. That's the only thing that's confirmed to be weaker by Sukuna himself. So physically, he's as capable as he always is. And Maki's able to go relative. Maki does not get perception blitz. In fact, you can straight up argue that Maki just avoided all of Nue's lightning bolts, which is an even crazier feat than anything she does against Curse Naoya. But you could also argue she just face tanked them, which is even crazier. Like 15-finger Nue levels of output, and she just face tanked it. Either way, it's crazy, and either way, it puts her in an entirely different speed tier than Yuta Okotsu. Strength-wise, it's hard to argue. I'll admit, it's very hard to argue that Maki and Toji have, like, the ability to just, like, beat Yuta to death. I don't think they can do that. Like, with their fists alone, I don't think so. I think Yuta's more than tanky enough. And I definitely think Rika's more than tanky enough, too. But it's just the fact that Rika and Yuta, full power or not full power, are lacking. They are lacking that extra level of girth, if you will, to really, and not even realistically girth, because I do believe that if Rika lands a hit on Maki, it's gonna do some damage. Like, once again, Rika fully manifested has direct scaling to Ryu and was able to, like, palm his Granite Blast and make him bleed on contact. Like, this is something that can happen, but even still, that requires Rika actually landing a hit. And I don't think Rika can do that. Just in the same vein, I don't think Yuta could actually land a hit on Maki. I believe that you can definitely argue Yuta should be relative to Akari in speed, even if Akari has a slight advantage. And I think Yuta's diversity and his bulk, and plus fully manifested Rika being there, is enough to take out Akari. And even base against, well, no, base to base with Yuta versus Akari, I think an unmanifested Rika, through being able to restrain not fully healed Demon God Yuji, should realistically be strong enough to at least hamper Hikari enough that a base Yuta could put the work up against Hikari. But with the Maki scenario, that massive gap in speed, a whole perception blitz level. Like, here's the thing, right? It is nigh on impossible. It is logistically nigh on impossible to argue that Yuta was holding back that much. That's essentially what you have to argue. If you want to argue that Yuta would not be perception blitzed by 15-finger Sukuna, but Ryu would, you would have to imply that Yuta was holding back a whole perception blitz level of speed against Ryu. And I'm sorry, that's just not implied anywhere. Like, I just can't see it. Like, going back to their fight, I can maybe give the idea that Yuta was holding back techniques out of fear that Kenjaku was watching. But even if we give Yuta, like, the benefit of the doubt and say, like, oh, well, he has projection sorcery because he interacted with Naoya once, and thusly he has projection sorcery levels of speed, we still know projection sorcery levels of speed is nothing to the current Maki. Like, say that Yuta gets the equivalent speed to human Naoya, okay, and a unawakened, bleeding out, freshly awakened Maki was completely able to no-sell that Naoya. You want to tell me that an awakened Maki with literal precog would not be able to react to a projection sorcery using Yuta? I highly doubt that. Because once again, she's relative to a person who's a whole perception blitz tier above Yuta. And you may be wondering, well, okay, Pencil, fine. You may think that she has the speed advantage, but what is she going to do about Yuta's bulk? Oh, wait! She has Soul Split Katana. You know, the thing that just ignores durability? Yeah, she has that. And thusly, it's very likely that if she finds that she can't actually just beat them up, all she does is swing on them. And then they instantly lose, because we now know Maki is an equivalent fighter to Toji Zenin, a demonic fighter equal to Toji Zenin in all aspects, and thusly, she knows how to use it. She can just perceive the soul now, even in inanimate objects, and thusly, all she needs to do is just piece Yuta up, quite literally, and then she wins. Like, that's it. And with her being able to casually, once again, it would probably be, even if you want to argue maybe Sukuna was holding back against Maki and Itadori, I don't know why. I have no idea why he would. Like, he wants Itadori gone, and while he does respect Maki, I think he legit just respects Maki because she's able to keep up. But even then, we see a non-serious 15-finger Sukuna, also not a full-on perception blitz, but he also just immediately knocks off Ryu. Like, Ryu is caught off guard by how quickly he gets slashed by a casual 15-finger Sukuna. Meanwhile, Maki's able to keep up in direct hand-to-hand combat with that man. So, even being super duper generous, I still think Maki has a decent enough speed advantage over both Rika and full power Yuta that she would just be able to weave everything. Even if Rika tried to, like, spawn from, like, the Shadow Realm, wherever she sits when she comes through that black portal, I still don't think she'd be able to tag Maki. And Maki would just weave and leave. That's it. And once again, with the durability negation of Soul Split Katana, well, it's the durability negation of Soul Split Katana. Like, neither of them would be able to do anything about that. Like, presumably, Rika would still get cut through, because Rika still has durability. So even if Rika has way, like, higher base output with her punches than Maki, as Rika goes to punch Maki, Maki weaves and slices her arm off, and her other arm, and her bulbous head, and then tears out the eyeball for good measure. And, like, worst comes to worst, Maki just steals the ring. Like, if the ring really is the prerequisite for activating full power Rika, she just speed blitzes Yuta, takes the ring, and then he's back in base. And I don't think I need to... Do I need to explain to you why Maki beats base Yuta? I mean, I can. I can. And we'll do that in the number 1 section, which, if you couldn't guess already, is... Yeah. You know who it is. So, let's talk about Maki and why she's just, like, absolutely insane relative to her two fellow heavy hitters. It's really the 15-finger scaling. Like, notably, you could even make, like, a pretty solid argument that, like, just with the 3-finger Sukuna stuff, but even then, I still don't think so. I think I would have taken so many things happened. Like, bad things happened for Yuta scaling. And then, like, Hikari is just in a really weird spot based on who he fights. Because Kashimo, while implied to be extremely powerful, has no direct scaling to anyone outside of Jackpot Hikari. And Jackpot Hikari's best scaling comes from Yuta saying he's stronger than him. But stronger doesn't mean you'll win in a fight. At least in my opinion, stronger does not mean you're going to win in a fight, guaranteed, 9 times out of 10. Unless the gap is, like, literally, like, one's planetary, one's universal, like, obviously then. But even, I'm not going to say even with that. If that's the case, then that's the case. But particularly stronger can mean a lot of things. I know I push the Hikari and Jackpot stronger than Yuta agenda, but that's just through, like, the curse energy reinforcement stuff. That doesn't mean I believe straight up. I'm kind of spoiling the battle that I'm going to do, but when I'm going to talk about Hikari versus Yuta, you may have been able to guess my opinion on that. But with that being the case, what happened is that Yuta's scaling got put in shambles by 15-finger Sukuna. That's it. That is it. Specifically, I'll say this. Yuta's speed scaling got put in shambles by 15-finger Sukuna, and Maki has a way to negate all the extra stuff that Yuta has. Because if Yuta didn't have direct equal combat speed relativity to Ryu, and then we didn't literally see Ryu get 2-pieced, not even 2-piece, 3-piece with no drink and no bev, that's the same thing, but legitimately, if we didn't see Ryu get 3-piece by Sukuna, then maybe we could argue through vagueness, and we could, like, use the statement that Yuji made about Yuta versus 15-finger. But that's just blatantly contradicted now. Like, that's the thing. For the longest time, I was pushing the Yuta agenda. Like, don't get me wrong. I was definitively pushing the Yuta agenda. I wish I had made more videos so I could, like, point to me pushing the Yuta agenda, but for the longest time, I just took Itadori's statement at face value. Like, oh, Itadori has the memories of 15-finger Sukuna. He should know just about how strong he is. He took one look at Yuta and said, okay, Yuta's 15-finger level. I was going with that. But then we actually got to see a 15-finger Sukuna while out a little bit on an opponent that Yuta really, really struggled with. Like, I'm sorry, Yuta fans. As much as I would love to slop off Yuta, he could not one-shot Ryu, nor could he perception blitz him. That's just two things he couldn't do. Or else he would have. He straight up would have. We see him one shot and presumably perception blitz Drew, but he couldn't do that to Ryu. So unfortunately, it's the relativity that's implied there that isn't bad for Yuta. Like, being relative to the guy with the highest output in the entire verse isn't a bad thing. Don't get me wrong. It's not a horrific lowball downscale kind of thing, but speed scaling to that guy, who then proceeds to get perception blitzed by the next guy, who proceeds to go relative with the girl that Yuta would have to be being compared to now. It's just really rough stuff. One gets perception blitz, one doesn't. Like, I don't know. And specifically, if I were to take away Maki's tools, tool, singular, it's not like she has multiple, but like, if I were to take away Soul Split Katana, then I think Maki loses. Heck, I would honestly give credence, well, if you think Hikari can activate Jackpot. That's a big thing. If you think Hikari can activate Jackpot against Maki, or starts in Jackpot against Maki, and then can continue Jackpot through domain somehow against Maki, even though technically that shouldn't work, if you think Hikari's domain requires 2 players, then I'd say Maki goes from top of the list to the bottom of it, because she just wouldn't be able to beat them, because they'd just be too bulky. Like, once again, I don't think Toji or Maki have any feats that imply that they could, like, beat the brakes off Jackpot Hikari and full power Yuta, or even base Yuta with their bare hands. Like, nothing implies that, unfortunately. You can go reread, trust me. Like, their highest, even with weapons, like, their highest piercing power not using Soul Split Katana is, like, grade 1. Or, like, punching at grade 1s. Like, legitimately, they don't necessarily have that high of, like, attack potency, at least relative to, like, the special grade tier, or, like, up on Yuta and Hikari, or Jackpot Hikari specifically is level. Like, there's nothing that implies that. But since we aren't gonna randomly take away their basic standard equipment, Soul Split Katana plus 15-finger scaling is crazy. Because that's it. That's literally all you need. If you have a way to bypass durability, and you are fast enough to perception blitz your opponents, and be able to hit them in a way that they are not able to heal from, which may be, like, we're not sure if RCT can heal soul damage. You may be able to imply it can, because Gojo is able to use RCT to heal against Maguna's attacks, and if Maguna's attacks should share the same properties as Itadori's attacks when he had Maguna, or not Maguna, when he had Sukuna inside him, and we know that Itadori naturally understood the contours of the soul and he was able to attack Mahito. So maybe you can argue that RCT should be able to restore them from Soul Split Katana, so they won't be in too much danger. Maki just goes for the head. On Jackpot Hikari, just straight goes for the head. And then bada bing, bada boom. Even with infinite curse energy, if Hikari's brain gets sliced open, I don't think he's going to be able to recover from that. I don't think he's going to be able to heal as he breaks, considering he would literally be perception blitzed and lose his whole dome piece. I don't think that's going to be able to work for him. And heck, worst comes to worst, once again, Maki just stalls out the 4 minutes and 11 seconds and restrains base Hikari. Because while I realistically don't think Toji and Maki have that much AP, I feel like they're more than strong enough to restrain base Hikari. So, there's that. And then for you, the same thing. Even if you want to argue, Soul Split Katana's his arm off, and he just re-heals it back somehow. Then bada bing, bada boom, she goes for the head. And then what? And then what is Rika gonna do? Not tag her, because Rika doesn't have any scaling that implies that she could keep up. Like, that's the thing. The massive gap. It really is the size of the gap that was put between 15-finger and the rest of the rabble. The 15-finger and the rest of the rabble. It's the main reason, like, I didn't mention Itadori, but if Itadori would be on this list, even after Liberation, I'd still put him beneath Jackpot Hikari. I'd still put him beneath, like, full power Yuta. I'd definitely put him beneath Maki. Why? Because while full power Yuji does have the speed, he does have speed relative to 15-finger Sukuna, and you could argue he could perception blitz Jackpot Hikari and perception blitz full power Yuta, he doesn't have anything that realistically implies he could do the darn damage. Like, he throws things at Sukuna and he hits Sukuna relatively hard, but he doesn't actually do that much damage to 15-finger, like, at all. So he wouldn't really be able to do much damage to Yuta or Hikari in my mind. And any damage he could do with just his fists would be healed off. So I don't think Itadori has the win con against either of them, but Maki specifically with Soul Split Katana has the perfect means to bypass Yuta and Hikari's main selling point, which is their durability and longevity. That's their whole gimmick. Like, Hikari's especially. Like, you could argue Yuta's gimmick is, once he's full power, is like he's a jack of all trades. Has decent enough AP, he has decent enough speed, and he has a decent enough array of hexes, plus his bulk. But realistically, Jackpot Hikari's main selling point is his bulk. If you can negate the bulk, if you have a way to just overwhelm it, which Maki very clearly does with Soul Split Katana, then Hikari's done. And if you have the speed to do it, if we were to just hard remove that 15 finger scaling from Maki, we just say that fight didn't happen. Like, we just don't know where Maki actually scales relative to 15 finger Sukuna in terms of speed, then I'd say we got to put her at the bottom. Because once again, the speed is what's necessary here. She needs the speed and the ability to bypass the durability, and she has both of those. But you remove that, and what? Toji slash Maki's best scaling implications are above Mach 3 Naoya, which is still fast. Like, I still think if you go with the idea that Naobito's the second fastest sorcerer, and projection sorcery Naoya should at least be relative to him, and then Curse Naoya should be faster because he can go Mach 3, then maybe you could still make the arguments through that, because Hikari and Yuta should be sorcerers, and thusly, at least Yuta should be a sorcerer, and second fastest implies that Naobito would still be faster than even him. Then maybe you could still get a little bit active and crazy with that speed scaling, but then if you have that, and you stack it up with the 15 finger stuff, then there's really just no hope for Hikari and Yuta. And you may have noticed, but like, I may have just bamboozled you in the beginning. I said we'd have to split it up between base and full power, but this is it. Like, this is just the list. And that's because, like, I don't think their amp states really change the results all too much, mainly because of how their amp states work out relative to each other. Full power Yuta and Jackpot Hikari still don't really do much relative to Maki. Jackpot Hikari still doesn't really do much relative to Yuta, just because of his lack of general AP and Yuta's multiple ways to take care of him, depending on when he activates his full power. So, there we go. That's my list of the JJK heavy hitters. However, I'm expecting a little bit of controversy with this. Please tell me what you guys think in the comment section down below. Please leave your own list down below. I'd love to see y'all get active and tell me why I'm wrong and pull out reasons and facts and stuff like that. Please do all that and more in the comment section down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please do like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure the notifications so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below where you support for as low as $1 a month. You get things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You can also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month and get the same perks and more. Now, thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Dago the Pencil, writing off.